to end the war in Ukraine by the end of this year. A fresh deadline like this was mentioned at a meeting of the U.S. government by the Special Representative of the U.S. President, Steve Witkoff. At the same time, starting today, additional tariffs against India have come into effect, doubling the existing ones, which had previously been 25%. This is the promised response to the fact that the country is buying oil from Russia. TSN's international correspondent Yana Slesarchuk will explain what exactly this threatens India with and discuss the latest statements from the U.S. administration regarding peace between Russia and Ukraine.
For close friendship with Russia,
To bring our trade and economic relations to a new level.
starting today, the price has gone up. So far, it's only for one country, India. On top of the existing 25% tariff, another 25% has been added. People both expected this and didn't because Donald Trump is known for his habit of making threats and then doing nothing. Just take his 10th ultimatum to Putin, for example.
In approximately 1 week from now, or perhaps in a slightly longer period, such as 2 weeks, or even extending to 2 or 3 weeks, specifically around the 2-week mark, it is anticipated to occur sometime in the approximate time frame of about 2 weeks from the present moment.
Electronics, that is, for example, Apple's multi-billion-dollar contracts as well as pharmaceuticals, are not affected. They were granted an exception, but the main victim of the increased import costs to America is, by half, the light industry. In particular, Indian textiles.
This is an absolute shock.
Leather exporter Shahi Mazaj shows emails from American wholesale clients. Just half a month ago, they paused their orders, waiting to see how things would turn out.
All orders from the States have now disappeared. Everything is very bad. Of course, we sell our products both domestically and in other countries, but the existence of many factories depended entirely on America.
First and foremost, this is a blow to Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, who not so long ago promised to turn the country into a global export hub in order to compete in this field with its longtime rival, China. A clear demonstration, building a relationship with Washington by positioning oneself as a natural counterweight to China is not working out. Trump's eccentric advisor Peter Navarro, the architect of the American president's tariff policy, is trying to convince his fellow citizens that India is lying when it claims that Russian oil is vital to it.
India.
India never bought any oil from Russia before. I repeat, before Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, India hardly bought any Russian oil. At most, it covered just 1% of its needs with it. Now, Russian oil accounts for up to 35% of India's needs, and India claims that this oil is vital for cooling homes, cooking, or fueling cars. But that's nonsense.
Another Indian industry that, unlike electronics, is at serious risk of suffering from the new American tariffs. The jewelry industry.
My prediction is that more than 100,000 workers in our industry will lose their jobs.
As always with sanctions, we'll have to wait and see how they work. Will Russia have enough money to bail India out of trouble with new deals? Or will Narendra Modi's government come to an end here due to economic difficulties? Meanwhile, the American president continues to threaten economic warfare and, as has become usual lately, after saying something unpleasant for Russia, immediately balances it with something about Ukraine.
There will be no world war, but there will be an economic war. The economic war will be bad for Russia. And I don't want that. But we'll see. Because Zelensky is not innocent either. It takes two to tango.
An American journalist asks how Ukraine is supposed to dance this tango if Russia, which hasn't seen fair elections in decades, calls Zelensky illegitimate because he stayed in office due to martial law.
I have a question for Steve Witkoff, if I may. This weekend, Sergei Lavrov stated that Putin will not sign a peace agreement with Zelensky because Russia considers him illegitimate. What difference does it make? It doesn't matter what they say. Steve can answer that, but I can too. It doesn't matter what they say, it's all just for show. It's all nonsense, you understand?
Trump's Special Representative Steve Witkoff insists by the end of 2025, Russia's war against Ukraine will be over.
Russia, Ukraine, Iran, Israel, and Hamas are all involved. This week, meetings are ongoing regarding all three of these conflicts, and we hope to resolve them by the end of this year. Your team is nothing short of extraordinary. And the only thing I want is for the Nobel Committee to finally come together and realize that you are the best candidate to ever receive this prize.
There isn't a single person, either in the White House or outside of it, who doesn't know how much Donald Trump craves to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. Counting on this, Putin is trying to force him to pressure the weaker side into peace because that's easier. and Trump has already struck at weaker targets more than once. After all, no additional sanctions have been imposed so far against China, which imports much more Russian oil than India does. Yana Slesarchuk, Anatoly Korop, TSN1+1.
To support peacekeepers with air cover and intelligence data. Such security guarantees for Ukraine have been announced by the United States of America. According to sources from the Financial Times, this is the proposal that American representatives voiced to their European counterparts. Washington is ready to assist with intelligence, surveillance, command and control, as well as air defense systems in order to ensure the deployment of European forces in our country. Sources cited by the publication indicate that this could involve American aircraft, logistics and ground-based radars, which would provide an air shield for Ukraine. The Financial Times notes that the implementation of the US proposal depends on the willingness of European countries to send their troops. At present, only 10 countries have agreed to do so. The publication also writes that Ukraine's security guarantees may include a demilitarized zone. This zone is to be patrolled by troops from a third country, agreed upon by both Ukraine and Russia. The forces of this third country could be deployed deeper within our territory, serving as an additional line of defense. However, this would be behind the shield of Ukrainian troops. How do you assess this idea of security guarantees? Be sure to write about it in the comments to this broadcast on YouTube. Your opinion matters. Of course, I genuinely look forward to receiving your valuable likes and insightful comments on this video. The exciting journey of TSN continues onward, and with great anticipation, we are now ready to move on to the next segment. However, the Russians themselves are having trouble with their energy sector. They hadn't yet managed to extinguish all the oil refineries hit by Ukrainian drones when a major oil pipeline, the Ryazan-Moscow line, exploded in Russia, which supplied petroleum products to the Russian capital. This was reported by the publication Babel, citing intelligence sources. Photos of the explosion are also being shared by Asian social media communities. Local residents report that explosions were heard in the area of the village of Bozatkovo in the Ryazan railway district, after which large-scale fires broke out. This oil pipeline is one of the main sources supplying Moscow with fuel. A few years ago, this main pipeline was repurposed for pumping gasoline, which is supplied by the state company Transneft. It supplies the Russian army. According to intelligence, the transportation of petroleum products to Moscow is currently suspended for an indefinite period. What exactly caused the explosion on the oil pipeline is currently unknown. Since the start of the full-scale war, over 200,000 cases have been opened in Ukraine for unauthorized abandonment of military units and more than 50,000 cases for desertion. More than 15,000 servicemen who left their units without permission have been notified of suspicion. This was emphasized by the Office of the Prosecutor General in response to a request from Ukrainska Pravda. Just this year, more than 100,000 cases have been opened for unauthorized absence, whereas in 2022, only 7,000 such incidents were recorded. Currently, taking advantage of the simplified mechanism for returning to service, which has been in effect for 8 months, 29,000 people have returned to the military. This mechanism allows servicemen to restore their monetary, food, and other provisions. Its validity expires on August 30th.